Hey everybody, Edo here, and I am super excited because today I am going to announce the winners of the Stuck at Home Game Design Contest with Gaming with Edo. And first and foremost, I want to thank everyone for their submissions, but also their patience. It has taken me a lot of time to get to the winners. There were 93 submissions, so it's a ton of games to check out. But also, Pencil First Games just launched the Whatnot Cabinet on Kickstarter, and obviously that takes a lot of time. So it's just been a number of things going on and also in the world. So I've now had the time to get through everything and come up with a list. Also, as this should be mentioned again, Pencil First Games is sponsoring this entire contest. And actually, going through the process, I felt like there were a couple other honorable mentions that I wanted to include. Originally, it was 3 first place prizes for $250 each for the award, and then 5 honorable mentions or special notes. It's going to be 10. So Pencil First Games will put up $1,250 to the contest, and I will be going through the games that have won in a moment. And you know, I run Pencil First Games, for those who don't know, so it's sort of a conversation with myself. But anyway, but in addition, so going through all of the submissions, right? You know, there were anonymous I have everybody's names and email, but like there were submissions, and I just reviewed them without knowing who they were from or worrying about who those people were and who submitted it. You know, a little harder than others because a lot of people put their names on the actual page, but just generally speaking, I focused on the game. However, after actually going through it all and having the time to play the games and figure out, you know, what I want to do, I just looked back at it and was looking up the folks who submitted and things like that. And I have to say, I mean, like, staggeringly white and European and staggeringly male submissions, right? And I think it's a reflection of, you know, the state of the game industry today. And, you know, I was thinking on that. We've obviously been reflecting on Black Lives Matter and everything that's happening in the world and thinking about, like, how to help move and make change. And I talked to some folks and thought about different ways of doing it. And ultimately, right now, what Pencil First Games is going to do is we're going to match the entirety of the $1,250 that are going to the winners with a $1,250 donation to the NAACP, and I'll do that after you know, in the coming days. There was a little, you know, part of it for me was also thinking about like more impact directly into the board game industry versus broadly, but again, in conversation right now, it feels like broad is best. And then I would like to continue to look at and think and see ways to support, and I've reached out to other folks to think of ways to be able to have just anyone can submit design contests that just has more submissions from a variety of folks, female, people of color, a whole range. But, you know, right now really focusing on now. But moving forward, want to do that. So we'll take care of that in the coming days and then be looking for opportunities in the future. So to get on with the actual results here, we have a couple things worth note. Because, okay, so playing through all these, right, I have to say, ultimately, there were a ton of amazing submissions, novel ideas, interesting implementations, a variety of themes. And as I went through more and more and played, you know, I didn't have like a hard criteria for the winners, but to some degree, I would also say that most of these games all have problems. Like, some have poor rules, some have weird themes, some are just mechanically a little broken. And so, you know, this list, I don't think, is necessarily the best designed games. In particular, I had also made the distinction, which I think was important, that I wasn't going to be reaching out to folks to get clarifications. I really wanted to say, this is what's submitted, I'm looking at it. And I also, admittedly, did not play these games dozens of times, right? Like, you know, if I really liked it, I might have played it more than once. But a lot of them, I checked it out, and you know, I was telling somebody I went through, like, I don't know, $500, $600 of ink just on all this stuff. But I wasn't spending a lot of time seeing longevity of the gameplay and the depth of the systems. And so in many ways, a lot of it comes down to the games that just sort of resonated with me the most. Games that, like, if I was to do some development on, I'd be like, I'd love to develop this game further. Or had some hook that I found interesting. So I guess it's all to say, check out the games. Check out the games. The folder is still up. I'll link it below. And so, I think that there are games for everyone. And, there are just some themes that weren't as interesting to me and other things. So I don't want to, I feel like I'm highlighting some games, but it definitely should be something to look at and go forward. So why don't we jump into it? And I have the winners here, the honorable mentions. I'll just post an image of them on the screen. So we'll just go with solo games first, one-player games, lots of submissions. The winner of the Stuck at Home Game Design Contest for solo one-player games is Gale, Flowers in the Wind. And essentially the way this game works is you have a number of these flower cards. And so, like, here's an example of a game, really needs better rules, really needs to look at its iconography, but I just thought it was so compelling that, and interesting and different, that I still felt like it worked, is you have a bunch of these flower cards, and what you're going to be doing is you're laying them all on a 4x4 grid with some other wind cards and like a special action wind, what is it called? The Wonder Wind cards. And so basically you're going to have a grid of cards in front of you that won't look exactly like this, but you're going to have a goal card, and what you're trying to do is move the squares around to successfully create that card. At the same time, you're doing it by like turning or like using the win cards, which lets you move things horizontally or diagonally, and you're basically like moving these squares around using the powers on the board. And it's this puzzly thing where you're moving and you're using abilities. And I just thought it was super cool. I really liked the motion of it, as well as the way you had, like triggering of effects in this small space. Again, I felt like it looks simple, and then it gets a little daunting. So I think there's some work here, but for me, this was just a standout. It's not, there were plenty of dungeon crawl games and other, more typical solo adventure games, but I liked how puzzly this one was, and so hey, here's your first place winner. I did have a couple of, again, these honorable mention prizes, but to some degree, I don't even think they're not necessarily runner-ups. They're just, these are games which had something about them that like I like so much. I wanted to be like, I want to acknowledge that submission. And there were so many, like cutting it down sucked, honestly. But okay, so next one is 6x6 Tales. And I'll show, again, I'm going to show a picture of these, but the kudos to this guy because the game had so many details on each one of the little cards, like so packed with information, so packed with gameplay, and it's an adventure, and you're also mapping out where you're going, and you're building a map, and it's got like all of the stuff in these little cards with so much text, so much. I just got a kick out of it, and I actually thought there was a lot of interesting things going in there, like at a practical level, like a little too much for me to like be like, this game's perfect. But I really thought the amount that was packed into each one of those cards was impressive. So it's winning $50 for the tiniest details. Also, I just wanted to acknowledge the next one is Satchel, A Journey Unknown. And very complete game. You're searching for an artifact, a number of solo games like this. This is rock solid. But in particular, this one is just, having gone through this, it was like the most complete submission in that it had the rules, it had printing guides, it had a how to play video, and then like all of the components were all laid out, and like it was a really robust and full solo experience. And again, rock solid. I think this is one of those cases where thematically it wasn't as interesting. It didn't feel, it didn't grab me, but that isn't because of a lack of hard work and effort. And I just wanted to acknowledge, having gone through so many of these, they really did a nice job of making it easy to dive in. So that was most complete. Okay, so that was in the solo category. There weren't as many submissions, so I didn't do the... I'm going to get through all 10 in a second. But so that was solo. Okay. Next up, we have the 2-player. Now, as a reminder, because the winner here is actually a game that was 1 to 6 players, I didn't accept any submissions in multiple categories, but anyone could submit a game into a category, right? So if you had a 1 to 4 player game and you felt it was best with 1 player or best with 2 or a bigger game, you could decide where to put it. And so that's the case with this. And actually, interestingly, it has some similarities to Gale, but it's an entirely different game. So the winner is Masters of the Night Sky. Also, super kudos to amazing graphic design and execution here. Like, this is basically ship ready. And again, I didn't do any research into the groups and folks and people who put these together. Some of them felt very much like somebody this was their first game they were going to make. And some of them felt like more robust submissions. This is really high-polished, professional, near-publishing game. But anyway, I totally dig this game. So this game is all about constellations. And essentially you have this grid of tiles, which have... it's a much larger grid than Gale, but they have stars on them. 3 stars, 2 stars, 1 stars. And basically, imagine this is a gigantic grid with a gap. So if you remember playing those games where you're trying to make a photo and you're moving tiles around and trying to get go through the puzzle of getting the perfect image, it's sort of has that vibe. But what ends up happening is everyone has and there's super swap. It's not you got power cards, but people have constellation cards that essentially are showing a layout of different stars. So the magic trick here is where on those other moving ones you're trying to make a perfect picture. Here I'm moving around all these stars in a hope of building these constellations in all different shapes and sizes and levels of difficulty. And it just works. This is an excellent game. And I really like the, Well, you know what this game isn't? Good for printers. Talk about, you can't even, as an aside, I can't even grayscale this and print this without, come on. But anyway, we'll set that. Okay, I guess that's a warning. Hey, if you're going to check out this game, unfortunately, this is a ink hog, super duper crazy ink hog, because it's the night sky. But this is a really nice execution. It's really easy to learn and play, super engaging, put in the table to play with somebody, and they're like, cool, let's play. It grabs you and you want to play it, and I think part of that is the level of doneness, but also I just like the idea of shifting around the night sky and trying to make constellations. It very much fits the vibe. And again, this is just where I emphasize, I like these types of games, so those types of things resonated with me, where, there were a number of really robust Euro-style point salad games, which I like, but I don't know, they don't grab me as quick, and I really wanted these games that you could just pick up and play. Gale was, I think with a little bit of rule refinement and development, that could fit that closer. It was a little much to wrap your head around. Okay. So, Masters of the Night Sky. Okay, so in this category, I have five honorable mentions, noteworthies, if you will. One is Balcony Gardens. So Balcony Gardens is getting the Pencil First Games prize. There were a number of games in here that were boy, this really reminds me of Herbaceous, or the type of game, not Cabinet's a little bit different, but Herbaceous or Sunset Over Water. And there was a number of them, and I had to resist being enchanted. But I actually like Balcony Gardens. Balcony Gardens is super simple. You are basically choosing between, you're presenting cards to choose you're basically letting somebody else choose the card you get and somebody else gets. It's a lot like Herbaceous, but it's a little bit more the thing where I'm laying out options for you to pick from, which is different than Herbaceous. But then when you're building in front of you, you're building a grid or columns or rows, which are giving you point and set collection. So, super simple, easy to learn, cute art, flowers, very cool. So that got the Pencil First Games prize. Then there is Floating Floors, Bansenshukai, which gets the award for the coolest construction for a print and play. This game, you're a ninja trying to travel across floors, but like you actually build and like have floating platforms, and you're like trying to. It's like sort of a dexterity game where not dexterity is not the right word, but a balancing game where you're like trying to get your ninja across and different objects on the board, and if they fall over, and like kudos to making a super duper print and play construction, like a little hard with paper, but I very, very cool, and some nice instructions that helped put it all together. But that was like a standout. So next up is Kitchen Sink. This gets the award for best use of household items. I sort of feel like maybe this is a game that exists and it was just written up. I haven't played it, but it's like, go to your kitchen, get some silverware, and it was sort of like, using some coins and stuff, like balancing and managing basically using things from your kitchen as game components. It's a little, the rules are a bit dense, not in terms of complexity, but like just sort of like no bullets. It's like, but I thought it was cute. I thought it was novel. Wasn't a winner in the context of like a robust full design of a board game, but it definitely was cool. And I was like, I like that. That's a nice idea. I like that it was out of the box in terms of using other things as game components. So it stuck out in my head. And actually, I'll jump ahead one. Another honorable mention or special one is Mystic Portal. That gets credit for the best use of video conferencing gameplay. And in fact, I think it was maybe there was another, but it was the main game, the biggest game that truthfully was this game is to play. Mystic Portal, the portal is your computer screen, and it's all about two players. One's an explorer, the other's a scientist, and it's sort of like going through symbols and communicating. But you're basically trying to solve a puzzle with two people playing different roles over a screen. Over your computer. And so it was just wholly that, and I really appreciated that, especially with COVID-19, the whole thing. And I thought it was well worth calling out and checking out. So that was award for best use of Zoom or teleconferencing. The last one is Kodama, which, and I think they probably need to rename it because I think there is a Kodama, but it's not Kodama, whatever they want to call it. But I just like the theme and the look and the vibe of this one. This is sort of the game. I enjoyed the game too, but this is sort of an art reward, but not just the art. It was just sort of pulling it all together. You're in a forest. There's all these spirits, and you're trying to get food. And I just sort of like the look and the feel and having it out. There were a number of pretty games, actually, and a number of games with some really cool characters and cartoons and sort of look and feel. This one stood out, I guess, because it was the inclusion of the board and the pieces. What was it? There's another one that had animal characters that were really they look good, but it was sort of separate. Anyway, there's lots of cool there's a number of ones that have pretty nice looking art and characters and development to them. But this one sort of, if I was to pick a game that I really thought was a cool, different theme that felt like it was the theme resonating, Kodama's the winner of that award. And so again, for you watching, if you just heard your game, what I'm going to do is I'm going to post this video, and then I'm going to, backtrack, get all the email addresses, and email you, and then we'll figure out how to get you your prize. Okay, so that was the last for the 2-player games. Let's close this out. So these are for 4 or 5 player games. Okay. There were a lot of really good submissions. And these were, generally speaking, denser games, not always. But hey, I get to pick the winners, right? So first place winner goes to Cutie Bug. I'm really disappointed because I had first played this at our parents' house, Emily's parents' house, and I couldn't find my original print, and then I've gone through so much ink that I print this as out in black and white, but you should go check out the files because it's just cute. It's colorful. Look, what is this game? This game is a game where everyone has a starting sheet. You're going to be, so basically first you go around and you pick a couple bugs that get circled on the page. You circle a couple bugs to start, and then basically what's happening is, and you're going to be passing sheets of paper around, is players are folding this such that they have a certain number of clovers, in this case 3, on the fold, and then they're trying to fold in the target bug, so like the snail. So like, I'm trying to get a fold with 3 clovers, and let me see if I can get a good one here. This is a tricky thing. And a snail. And so I'll figure out the perfect fold later, but I think it's something like that. Okay. And so, so you're going to fold it over, and then you circle it, you score it, and then like you're going to be passing the sheet around. And like, it's labeled as a fold and write game, and like, I saw it instantly, like when I was going through, I was like, is that a fold and write game? And I was like, it is. And then I played it, and I enjoyed it. And I felt like something that people could just jump in, play with their family at home, and have a little fun time with. This one just stood out to me. Double-sided cards, stapling them, I don't love it. And I don't, some of these things, like I have no idea, like, if they intend these to be this size or not. They don't need to be, but whatever. And easy, again, also just in that sense of like, hey, really clear rules, you pick it up and play. Like, to me, this is the kind of game that, like, I think you pull out, play with your kids, and it's fun and novel and interesting. And hey, if there's like 6 other games like this and it's not novel, I'm sorry. But anyway, so this one wins. And I think people should check this out because it's cool. Like all of these games, I feel like have a lot of potential. So that was Cutie Bug. And so there were 3 more awards to round out the 10. And let's go through them. So, okay. Thar be treasure. So this is a game where you're pirates and you're bearing treasure and you're moving around on this map tiles. But if you watch my how to make a rulebook video from ages ago, I created a note in there about like if you don't know how to like use programs or whatever, just take pictures of your game and put it in. Like don't worry about using game programs, like just take photos and put in your rules, like setup. Don't worry about setting it up in Photoshop. Just like set it up at the table, take a picture of it. This was the best PNP because the designer literally took a photocopier, put the game components one-to-one on the photocopier, and then, or I guess a scanner, one-to-one on the scanner, closed it, and scanned it. So when you're printing out the cards, you're printing out photographs, nicely, good job color scaling so there wasn't that much dark on them, but like, and cutting out, so you're like literally cutting out copies of the handmade prototype materials that were made. Like, it made me so happy to see it. So happy to see it. I thought I got such a kick out of it. That it's won the best printed play. Okay. 2 more. Next was International Water. This game, it's like a South China. I think it's the South China Sea, and talking about some different territory I mean, I don't know the time period. I don't remember like the historic, modern day, real world sea thing. But, you have these really interesting looking tiles with the different landmass formations, and you're moving your cubes around. Like I felt like had so many interesting things going on, and the presentation was really sort of unique. Like you looked at it, it reminded me of, I'm not going to remember the name of it, and I should have it somewhere. Where is it? I'm never going to remember the name of it. It's somewhere. There's this great two-player Acrotary. So so that game, whatever that game is, it's not. This isn't really a pick up and deliver, but it really reminded me of that look and feel, and Acrotiri, I think, maybe. Anyway, it just stood out to me. I really dug it. There was a lot of stuff. For the amount of stuff in there, pretty clear. Definitely worth checking out. But it got so much going on reward. And so my last one goes to Pirate's Bluff. Pirate's Bluff is a really simple, bidding on treasure game with pirate cards of different values. But the visual presentation and how the pirates look and just the simplicity of the game, it's just really easy to drop in front of people, explain and go. Like I really like the nuance of it. I'm giving it the R award, but like I also they have a scallywag mechanic which I thought was interesting. Ultimately, I think it needs another mechanic. Like I felt like to some degree it was a little too simple, but I don't think that would be hard to add. Like I feel like it needs more, but it definitely like grabs people in their play and it's easy to get into. It's just, I think, a couple more, one or two more mechanics to take it the whole way. So, that was it. Again, I want to just stress, thank you so much for all the submissions. Incredible. And, part of this was to inspire designers to get out and do some designs, but it was also so that there could be 93 submissions, link below, 93 submissions that are available for you to play if you're stuck at home and can't get out and it's the weekend, like this weekend coming up, you need something to do. Like, play one of these games. Play all these games. It's going to just, it takes a lot of ink, but like, or just look through them, but I think I was thrilled with the everything that came in, and it was exciting to see it and put it together. So hopefully, more than just the designers getting the prize, it's people having the opportunity to play these games. Also, if you do have time and you are stuck at home, I think it's also an important time to be learning and reading about the protests and everything going on right now, and listening and gaining perspective. Because there's a lot wrong right now, and we need to fix it. So so that's something else to be done with your time. But again, big thanks to Pencil First Games for funding here. You can check out the Whatnot cabinet, but otherwise, thanks a lot. Bye. Hey everybody, Edo here, and thanks for watching Gaming with Edo. Reviews over here on this playlist. League and Insider videos over here on this one. Subscribe, share, all that good stuff. But most importantly, play some great games. Thanks.